or not, garden friends, it is time to start thinking about what seeds you can be sowing in July. That's right, it is almost the end of June here in Michigan, and I'm going to do an entire video telling you what you can be planning for to be planting in July. Hi, my name is Landon Gilfield and I'm with Pepper and Pine Garden Design, and today I'm going to share with you the seeds that you can be planting in July that's going to prepare you for either a late summer harvest, an early fall harvest, or even a winter harvest. Now, I have two blog posts that might interest you along these lines. The first one is my seed sowing calendar for July, where I have all of these plants listed out, broken down into which ones you would start undercover, which ones you can start in the ground, which ones you can start mid-month, the beginning of the month, the end of the month. All of that stuff is broken down for you in this blog post, my seed sowing calendar for July, which is in the description, as well as my blog on how to grow broccoli in Southwest Michigan. I have a video and a blog on that. And you can find the video here. You can find the blog down below. If you're interested in looking at growing broccoli this season, that is something you can be starting right now at the end of June into July, and be harvesting it at the end of summer into the early fall and into the winter and even the early spring. So make sure you check those resources out if you're really interested in trying to grow broccoli this year. You really could be doing that right now. I've really moved more into this like consistent sowing seeds in my house specifically. I've found that it's really helping to alleviate a lot of the pressure that I have to have everything started by a certain date, all these trays and grow racks in my house all at the same time, completely taking over my life and my space in my house. I've actually seen how much more I can start to spread these things out. I can succession sow, succession plant these things out in the garden to where I only have one, maybe two shelves with seedlings on them at a time. Right now I have one tray of sunflower seeds in my house, and then I have two trays of plants out on my back porch that are hardening off, and I'm about to start another tray of items here in the next couple days. It really just kind of helps space things out. It feels less harried and really more productive and more just doable overall. So I really hope you'll consider looking at these calendars and kind of asking yourself how you can really start planning out your gardening seasons, you know, thinking a month at a time of what you can be sowing indoors and what you can be sowing directly in the ground outdoors. You really might find it becomes a much easier, more doable practice in the long run. And I will tell you that the plants that I'm sharing with you now and the ones that are in my blog post are geared towards my zone, which is zone 5B6A. I'm in Southwest Michigan. However, if your hardiness zone is different, don't turn off the video, because you can very easily adjust these dates to your calendar. And a lot of times you'll find that someone that's in a different hardiness zone actually has similar seasonal highs and lows to wherever you're at. So it can be very nuanced. But all you need to do to figure out how to adjust your dates from my calendar is add or subtract dependent on your first frost date. We're going to go from the first frost date instead of the last frost date, since we're moving towards the end of the season here. So my estimated first frost date is usually around October 10th. So if your first frost date is, say, 2 weeks after that, October 24th, then you'll just add 2 weeks on to whatever calendar I have on my blog. Or like, for example, I'm going to tell you something here, mid-month, July, start these plants. Well, you would want to start these plants at the end of July, adding 2 weeks to whatever date or range that I give you. If your first frost date is a week before mine, then you will just subtract that amount of time from the dates I'm giving you. So if I'm saying mid-month, you want to start this plant, we'll just subtract a week and start that plant either the first or second week of July. So it's actually really easy to shift and adjust your hardiness zone depending on mine. So again, I'm 5B6A and I'm in Southwest Michigan. So that should help you depending on where you are. And hey, if you're right here with me, then you don't have to adjust anything. So let's get into what we can actually be sowing in July. Okay, things that you want to sow before mid-month. And again, this is zone 5B to 6A. So right there, mid-month for me will be the hottest part of my season. I'm going to be looking at starting lettuces, beets for leaves, chard, endive, and radicchio. Chicory, if you've heard of Italian chicory, that's another word for radicchio, which is Italian chicory. So if you notice chicory or radicchio, they're sort of the same thing. I'm growing 2 different types of radicchio this year. I'm growing a heading radicchio and then a leaf radicchio. They're both Italian varieties, heirlooms that have been around for a long time. I'm going to be growing a frilly endive. That sounds really tasty. Endive has a tendency to be spicy, a little bitter, but both of these are really good when thrown on the grill. You can grill them and you give them that caramelization to them, and it helps take away some of that bitterness. In fact, in Italy, I lived there for about 3 years, and one of the things that they did was grill radicchio. So into the summer, you can be getting that radicchio on your grill before the winter comes. It's a really great way to eat that particular crop. Lettuce, all different kinds of lettuces. I just started a whole bunch of lettuce. I started Marvel of 4 Seasons and Butter Crunch Butterhead over here in this garden, and then probably in the next month I'll be starting some more, just succession sowing the lettuces. And I continue to sow lettuce out in my green stalk on my back porch. That's been awesome, just to go out and harvest leaves for salad for dinner, and my kids know exactly where to go and exactly what to clip, so that's been fun. And again, beets for leaves, beets for roots, chard. So you can actually still be sowing Swiss chard. It's actually a great time to sow Swiss chard because it likes the heat, but it's not negatively affected by the cool. So once the weather starts cooling down, it's going to do fine and can even tolerate a little bit of a light frost once it's a fully mature plant. So chard is another great one to sow as well. And then the chicory, endive, and radicchio. Now, after mid-month, you can still start the bulb fennel. Chevril. So chevril is like a cousin to parsley. It's often used in a lot of recipes, British recipes. A lot of European recipes use chevril instead of parsley, or use both. It's really good for poultry dishes and fish. So I want to try some chevril this year. It's not something I've grown, but I'm trying to expand in my culinary seasoning. So chevril is one that you can start right now. Watercress or land cress, however you refer to it. It's just a kind of like a spicy green with little round leaves. It actually has the same flavor as nasturtium leaves, if you've ever eaten nasturtium leaves. I was going to grab a nasturtium leaf, but they're over there. So they have a little bit of a spicy flavor to them. I absolutely love spicy leaves. I love throwing them in my salads for a little bit of a kick, and I actually just love eating them plain. So land cress or watercress is another one you can start after mid-month, as well as any kind of arugula. There's different kinds of arugula, or some of you may know it as rocket or rucola. So rocket is what they call it over in England or in the European countries. In Italy, we called it rucola. So, or arugula. So however you know it, arugula is another great one to start after mid-July, keeping in mind that arugula bolts at any sign of warmth, which is why you're wanting to wait till after the hottest point of your season to start that plant. You want to be able to moving it into the garden once the temperatures are going down, not going up. So keep that in mind wherever you are. Arugula, spinach, cilantro, those things will bolt at the sign of heat. So you really want to be putting them in your garden once the temperatures are cooling down. On that note, cilantro is another one that you can be starting after mid-July. It does not like the heat. If you have a nice shady spot that you're going cilantro like I am, you can maybe try to start it now, as long as it's not in the midday sun. It might grow and produce for you, but you want to be sowing more cilantro. We all love cilantro, and its lifespan is so short if you have a hot season. So be sowing some more cilantro after mid-month of July. And then Chinese cabbage is another one you can start after mid-July. Just another type of leafy cabbage that's really yummy. There's so many different varieties. I'm actually about to harvest my early Jersey Wakefield cabbage. I've got 2 or 3 heads down there that are ready to harvest today or tomorrow. I'll be harvesting those. And then I'll have another variety that I'll be ready to harvest in the next 20 days. And then after that, I'm hoping to start another variety that I can harvest closer to fall and into winter. So Chinese cabbage and Savoy cabbage are those cabbages that you can be starting in July. Now at the month's end, at the end of July, you're going to be thinking about some of those faster growing greens like spinach. So again, spinach does not like the heat. Even slow to bolt varieties like Bloomsdale long-standing spinach will, though it holds longer than most of those fast to bolt plants, it really doesn't like that heat. So you really want to be starting spinach, especially out in your garden once the temperatures have been cooling down. You can give it a head start in your house by starting it inside when the weather is hot and then transplanting it out into the garden once the temperatures have come down. So spinach is a great one to start at the end of July, as well as mustards, mustard greens. I love mustard mixes. I think they're awesome for salads. And one in particular I have has Mizuna leaves in it and some endive, arugula, and I'm trying to remember the other one. And it's such a great mix. I love mustards, but they are quick to bolt. So you want to plant those towards, or sow those towards the end of July in your house. If you want to sow them directly in the ground, I would wait another couple of weeks till the temperatures have started to cool down a little bit before you sow those directly in the ground. Pak choi is another great one that you can start under cover at the end of July. Your little bitty pak choi is. You can also start bok choy if you want. Those are two great options for greens that you can start sowing at the end of July, as well as turnips. Turnips, again, they're quicker to mature than the beets, which is why you start them towards the end of July. You can multi-sow those just like you do the beets and radishes, putting 3 seeds per cell, 3 to 4 seeds per cell, or 3 to 4 seeds in the garden. But again, if you want to start them directly in the garden, I would wait another 2 or 3 weeks after mid-July to start those, just because they don't particularly like the heat. So sow them inside at the end of July, and then you can move them out to the garden about 2 or 3 weeks after that. So head lettuce is another one that you can start. Since you're moving out of the warm season, you don't necessarily have to look for those varieties that can be heat tolerant. Of course, this depends on your particular climate and where you're growing. If I'm starting head lettuce inside my house at the end of July, I know that when I move those plants out to the garden 3 weeks later in August, the temperatures will be cooling down and they will fare great through the end of August and into September, and I can start harvesting those head lettuces. And then of course, hardy cabbage. Those are your bigger cabbages that will be cold hardy. They take 90 to 100 days to mature, and so you'll be harvesting those closer to your first frost date. So make sure it's a cold hardy or a frost sensitive cabbage, and most cabbages are frost tolerant, cold hardy. Those are some of your more cold hardy plants in the garden are your bigger cabbages. But just always check your descriptions whenever you're buying seeds to make sure you're getting one that likes those cooler temperatures and can handle those frosts depending on when your frost date is. But yes, head cabbages can be started indoors at the end of July. Now, things that you can absolutely be sowing up to mid-July outside are carrots. For the most part, for me, sowing carrots past mid-July it's not as productive as sowing them in the cooler seasons and then afterwards. And depending on the variety, if they are cold hardy or frost tolerant, some of those carrots will actually overwinter in the ground, and you can actually harvest them once they've fully matured. It's kind of like the root cellar idea. You're storing those carrots in the ground and can harvest them even after the snow has fallen. But just keep in mind how long it takes that carrot variety to mature and when you want to be harvesting them. But for the most part here in Southwest Michigan, I'm not going to be sowing carrots past mid-July. So everything I listed here can be sown indoors in August as well, which is great. So I will actually be kind of looking at that calendar. I will probably be starting 1 or 2 trays a week as over the course of the next couple of months. So as I'm starting a tray, I'm moving a tray out to be hardened off, and I'm moving a tray that's being hardened off out into the garden. So it's this continual process of transplanting, hardening off, and starting from seeds. So I don't feel like I'm having to do it all at once. And of course, as I'm doing this in my own garden, I'll be sharing videos with you, showing you what I'm putting out in the back porch, what I'm putting in the garden. And so that can be a really great way to kind of estimate when you should be doing the same things, at least if you're here in Southwest Michigan or again, zone 5B, 6A. So I will keep you updated on what I'm doing here. This week, my plan is to start some beetroot seeds in my house for sure. And I'm waiting on seed packets to arrive to be able to start my purple sprouting broccoli and my radicchio and my endive. I've already sown some lettuce out in the garden, and I really can just kind of hang out for the next couple of weeks before I really start kicking in gear, getting those early fall and late fall plants started in my house. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope it gives you something to think about, to plan ahead, to order your seeds if you need to, or just be kind of planning out how you can be starting seeds 1 week at a time, spreading them out over the next couple of months and not feeling so harried to get everything in the garden or everything started all at the same time. This kind of planning really gives you a lot of leeway. So if you have any questions or comments, be sure and leave them below. If you're enjoying this content, obviously subscribe and share these videos with those you think that might be helpful. And as always, my name is Landon Gilfillan here at Pepper and Pine Garden Design, growing gardeners and their gardens, and I'll see you in the next video.